Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving deep into some of history's most controversial events,
Oh, fun.
exploring those conspiracy theories that just won't go away.
I love those.
We've got a whole stack of articles here from Fair Play magazine,
Okay.
issue 33, and they really get into the nitty-gritty details.
Excellent.
Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
I always love a good conspiracy theory.
Okay, let's start with the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
All right.
One article focuses on this 1999 trial that you might not have even heard of.
Oh, really?
Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis restaurant owner, was found liable by a jury for King's death.
Wow.
But here's the crazy part.
Okay.
The mainstream media barely covered it.
Really? That's so strange.
I know, right? It's wild.
Yeah.
Major outlets like CBS and the New York Times really downplayed the trial and the verdict.
Ah.
They even used word like opined when they were reporting on the jury's decision.
Opined.
Yeah.
Which seems like a strange choice for a legal finding. It's almost as if they were trying to make the jury sound less certain than they were.
Exactly. It's super weird.
Right.
Jowers actually confessed, and his attorney, Lewis Garrison, laid out this whole story during the trial.
Oh, wow.
Jowers claimed he received the murder weapon right after the assassination,
Uh-huh.
hid it,
Okay.
and then handed it off to someone else the next day.
Wow.
You'd think that would be front-page news, right?
We're sure.
But it wasn't,
So strange.
and it gets even wilder.
Okay.
Multiple witnesses, including former law enforcement officers, actually backed up Jowers' claims.
Wow.
One woman even testified that she heard a known underworld figure admit to orchestrating King's murder.
Oh, my gosh.
So you've got a confessed killer, corroborating witnesses, and a jury verdict.
Yeah.
Yet the official narrative remained unchanged.
That is wild.
This raises the question,
Okay.
why was this alternative explanation seemingly ignored?
Right. Like, what's going on here? That's $1 million question. What's even more striking is that neither the Justice Department nor major media outlets ever interviewed Jowers directly.
Right.
Despite his confession and all of those witness testimonies,
It's crazy.
it makes you wonder what they were afraid of uncovering.
Like someone wanted to keep a lid on this whole thing.
Totally.
Okay, let's move on to another event that's shrouded in mystery. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
One of the articles zeroes in on this detail from that famous Moorman photograph,
Okay.
the one with the lady in the pink coat.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Have you ever noticed that shadowy figure in the background?
In the background.
Yeah.
Not that I recall.
The one researchers call the hashtag 5-man?
The hashtag 5-man.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So he appears to be on the grassy knoll,
Okay.
and that directly challenges the Warren Commission's conclusion that all the shots came from the Texas School Book Depository behind the motorcade.
Right.
So this hashtag 5-man is super intriguing.
Yeah.
And get this,
Okay.
a researcher named Raymond Marcus. He presented the hashtag 5-man image to a dozen independent photographic experts.
Okay.
But he didn't tell them anything about the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow.
And the majority of them identified the figure as a man holding a straight object.
Really?
Yeah.
Just from looking at the photo.
Just from looking at the photo, they were like, oh, that's a man, and he's holding a straight object.
That's pretty compelling evidence.
Oh, no, right?
Especially coming from experts who had no preconceived notions about the image.
Right.
It makes you wonder why this detail was largely ignored or downplayed by both the media and official investigations.
Well, there's this story about how CBS wanted to feature Marcus's research on a special about the Warren Commission.
Okay.
But then a CBS executive claimed that he couldn't even see anyone in the detail.
What?
Yeah, talk about burying your head in the sand.
Wow.
It certainly raises questions about media bias and the potential suppression of information that doesn't fit the official narrative.
Totally.
It makes you wonder if they were willing to downplay this detail, what else might they have been hiding?
Yeah. That's unsettling, to say the least.
It is.
It is.
Speaking of unsettling, did you hear about what happened when Marcus met with Warren Commission attorney Wesley Leibler?
No. What happened?
So after looking at the hashtag 5-man and hearing Marcus's arguments,
Yeah.
Leibler just said, Mr. Marcus, sometimes we get caught up in things that are bigger than we are.
Bigger than we are.
I mean, what does that even mean?
That's a chilling statement.
I know, right?
It almost implies a knowledge of something larger at play, something beyond the official explanation.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, let's get into another JFK mystery, but
Yeah.
this time we're going medical.
Ooh, medical. I love it.
Did you know there's a huge discrepancy in the reported size of JFK's throat wound?
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
No, none of that.
So the doctors at Parkland Hospital who treated Kennedy first described a small incision,
Oh, okay.
about 2 to 3 centimeters.
All right.
But the autopsy report lists a much larger incision.
Much larger.
Yeah.
How much larger?
Something like 6.5 to 8 centimeters.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah, I know. It's huge.
Yeah.
And the pathologist who performed the autopsy,
Yeah.
Commander James Humes,
Oh.
he changed his story.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, at first he described a large incision.
Uh-huh.
But then, years later, he claimed it was just a small tracheotomy scar.
So a much smaller wound than he originally reported.
Exactly.
What's up with that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
If there was a larger incision, Humes would have to explain how a bullet made that wound.
Right.
And that could blow the single shooter theory out of the water.
That makes sense.
So this discrepancy is definitely puzzling.
Yeah.
Is it proof of a cover-up, or could there be a simpler explanation?
It's hard to say.
What's even more baffling is that the Assassination Records Review Board,
Yeah.
which was tasked with reviewing all the evidence,
Mm.
they never directly asked the Parkland doctors about the different descriptions of the throat wound.
Oh, wow.
Like a major loose end.
Yeah.
You have these conflicting accounts from medical professionals who examined the body.
Right.
And this crucial detail is never clarified.
Wow.
It really makes you wonder if there was a deliberate attempt to avoid certain lines of questioning
Yeah.
that might challenge the official narrative.
That's really suspicious.
The JFK assassination raises so many unsettling questions.
For sure.
But this pattern of conflicting accounts isn't unique to this event.
Okay.
Let's look at the Pearl Harbor attack.
Right.
Most people think it was a total surprise
Yeah.
because the U.S. hadn't cracked the Japanese codes, right?
Right. That's what we're always told.
But one of our articles dives into the research of this guy, Robert Stinnett.
Robert Stinnett.
Yeah.
Huh.
He spent 16 years using the Freedom of Information Act to get government documents about Pearl Harbor.
Wow. 16 years.
Yeah, his findings are pretty shocking.
What did he find?
So Stinnett argues that the U.S. had actually broken key Japanese codes as early as 1940.
What?
Uh-huh.
So they could have known about Japanese ship movements. Yeah. And maybe even potential attacks. Exactly. Is he saying that the U.S. let Pearl Harbor happen?
Well, his research certainly suggests that the U.S. government knew more than they let on.
That's crazy.
There's even this 1941 memo
Okay.
from Lieutenant Commander Arthur McCollum outlining a plan to provoke Japan into war.
To provoke them.
Yeah, and it's eerily similar to the events that actually led up to Pearl Harbor.
Hold on. So they might have intentionally maneuvered Japan into attacking.
That's what Stinnett is saying.
That's a bold claim.
It is.
What evidence does he provide to back up this theory?
Well, one key piece of evidence is these RDF reports.
RDF reports.
What are those?
RDF stands for Radio Direction Finding.
Oh, okay.
And it was this system used to detect the location of ships.
Got it.
These reports could have indicated that the Japanese fleet was approaching Pearl Harbor.
Ah, I see. So if they had these reports, then...
Then they would have had some warning, yeah.
So what happened to these reports?
That's where things get suspicious. They were removed from the intelligence summaries that were given to Admiral Kimmel.
They were removed.
Yeah.
Who's Admiral Kimmel?
He was later blamed for the lack of preparedness at Pearl Harbor.
So not only did they possibly have information about the attack, but they might have deliberately withheld it from the people who needed it most.
Yeah,
That's messed up.
it is.
It's really messed up.
It definitely challenges our understanding of the events leading up to Pearl Harbor
For sure.
and the motivations behind U.S. actions.
Yeah.
Okay, one last JFK stop before we wrap up part one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Let's talk about Governor Connolly, who was riding with Kennedy when he was shot.
All right.
The Warren Commission claimed that one bullet went through Kennedy and then hit Connolly.
Yeah, that's the single bullet theory, right?
Yeah, but there are some serious problems with that theory.
Like what?
Well, the eyewitness accounts alone raise red flags.
Okay.
Both Governor Connolly and his wife testified that they remembered a separate shot hitting the governor after Kennedy was wounded.
After Kennedy was already wounded?
Yeah,
That's a problem.
it is.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse,
Okay.
Governor Connolly's clothing was washed before forensic examination.
What? Why would they do that?
I know, right? Why would they destroy potentially crucial evidence like that?
That's so suspicious.
It is.
Yeah.
But here's the real kicker.
Okay.
The FBI's own report states that the bullet found on a stretcher,
Uh-huh.
the one the Warren Commission claimed went through both men,
Right.
didn't actually exit Kennedy's body.
Hold on. If that bullet didn't go through Kennedy, it couldn't have hit Connolly. That
Exactly.
means there had to have been at least 2 shooters, right?
What's the evidence suggests?
Wow.
The FBI report directly contradicts the single bullet theory,
Yeah.
which is a cornerstone of the Warren Commission's conclusion that Oswald acted alone.
This is blowing my mind.
I know, right?
It's like we're uncovering a completely different version of history than what we were taught in school.
It's amazing how much information was seemingly brushed aside in these cases.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what else might be hidden.
We've seen this pattern of suppressed information,
Yeah.
conflicting accounts,
Mm-hmm.
and unanswered questions in both the MLK and JFK assassinations, and even in the Pearl Harbor attack.
It's crazy, right?
It's wild.
It makes you question how much of what we call history is actually factual and how much is a carefully constructed narrative.
It's almost like we're looking at these events through a cracked lens.
A cracked lens.
Yeah.
I like that.
We can see the main picture,
Yeah.
but there are these distorted parts that just don't quite line up.
That's a good analogy.
Okay, let's get back to JFK.
Okay.
One of the articles talks about the bullet that supposedly went through both Kennedy and Connolly Commission Exhibit 399, a.k.a. the magic bullet.
Ah, yes, the magic bullet.
What does the article have to say about it?
Well, it mentions the testimony of Dr. Robert Frazier.
Okay, the FBI firearms expert who analyzed the bullet. He concluded it was a low-velocity bullet.
A low-velocity bullet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But then you have other experts, like Dr. Ronald Gregory, who said that any bullet capable of going through both Kennedy and Connolly would have to be a high-velocity,
High velocity.
super powerful bullet.
So 2 very different opinions
Right.
from experts who presumably examined the same evidence.
Exactly.
It definitely throws a wrench into the single bullet theory,
Okay.
and it raises questions about how the Warren Commission could have concluded that Oswald acted alone,
Right.
especially with all these conflicting expert opinions.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of the bullet's weight.
Oh, okay.
The Warren Commission claimed that the bullet found on the stretcher, along with all its fragments,
Yeah.
actually weighed more than the heaviest test bullet they fired from Oswald's rifle.
Wait, how is that even possible?
I know, it's crazy, right?
You can't create matter out of thin air.
I know, it's a violation of basic physics.
Right, exactly.
This discrepancy, along with the conflicting expert testimonies,
Yeah.
it makes you seriously question the thoroughness and objectivity of the Warren Commission's investigation.
It's like they were trying to fit the evidence to their predetermined conclusion
Totally.
rather than letting the evidence guide them.
It's so frustrating.
I know, it's like we're being gaslighted by history itself.
I know.
It is.
Okay, one more detail from the sources that I found particularly fascinating.
All right, hit me.
The article about the separate Connolly shot
Okay.
breaks down the Zapruder film frame by frame, focusing on Governor Connolly's reactions.
Yes, the Zapruder film.
Tough to watch.
Yeah, it is tough to watch.
But it provides such a unique perspective
Yeah,
on the assassination.
definitely.
So what did the analysis reveal?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well, the article argues that Connolly's movements and facial expressions clearly show that he was hit by a separate bullet
Okay.
during Zapruder frame 292.
During frame 292, that's significant because frame 292 happens after the point where the Warren Commission says Connolly was hit by the magic bullet.
Exactly.
If this analysis is accurate, it would mean there were at least 4 shots fired during the assassination.
Right.
And given how long it takes to fire the type of rifle Oswald allegedly used,
Yes.
4 shots would require at least 2 gunmen.
Exactly. The single shooter theory just doesn't hold up.
It really doesn't.
When you consider the timing of the shots and Governor Connolly's reactions,
No, it doesn't.
it's like watching history unfold in slow motion.
Yeah, it is.
We see these tiny details that were seemingly overlooked or ignored by the official investigation.
Yeah.
And they paint a completely different picture.
It's mind-blowing.
And it's not just the Zapruder film.
Right.
When you combine that with all the other conflicting eyewitness accounts,
Yeah.
the mishandling of evidence, and the suppressed information we've discussed,
Right.
the idea of a conspiracy becomes much more plausible.
It does. It really does.
It makes you realize that history is not always a neat and tidy story.
No, it's not.
It's often messy and complex.
Right.
And there are usually more questions than answers.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting how these conspiracy theories, despite being often dismissed or ridiculed, continue to persist.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, why are people so drawn to these alternative explanations?
I think it speaks to a deep-seated human need to question authority and seek the truth. even when it's uncomfortable or challenges our worldview.
That's true.
You know, when we sense inconsistencies in the official narrative,
Okay.
or when we feel like information is being withheld, it's natural to want to dig deeper and find our own answers.
That makes sense.
We all want to feel like we understand the world around us.
For sure.
And sometimes the official explanations just don't cut it.
Especially in an age of information overload and misinformation.
Totally.
It's more important than ever to develop critical thinking skills.
Sure.
And to approach all information, even historical accounts, with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Couldn't agree more.
I completely agree. We can't just blindly accept what we're told.
Right.
Especially when it comes to events that have shaped our world.
Yeah.
We need to be discerning consumers of information.
Mm-hmm.
And be willing to challenge the narratives that we've been given.
And that's what makes these deep dives so valuable.
Told
They
us.
allow us to explore different perspectives, to uncover hidden details, and to challenge our assumptions.
Yeah.
It's about engaging in a process of critical inquiry and becoming more informed citizens.
Well said.
Thanks.
All right. Are you ready for another bombshell from these JFK files?
Hit me.
This one involves the FBI's findings on the bullet that supposedly passed through both Kennedy and Connally.
Oh, we were just talking about the conflicting expert opinions on that bullet. Is this another example of the FBI's findings clashing with the Warren Commission's conclusions?
You bet.
Okay, tell me everything.
So the FBI report flat out states that the bullet found on the stretcher at the Hospital Commission, Exhibit 399,
Right.
was fired from Oswald's rifle,
Yeah.
but did not exit Kennedy's body.
Wow. That completely dismantles the single bullet theory.
I know, it's crazy.
If the FBI is right, then there had to have been another shooter.
Right.
Why wasn't this information more widely known?
That's the question, isn't it?
Why would the Warren Commission reach such a different conclusion when their own investigative arm had evidence contradicting their theory?
It's a giant question mark hanging over this whole case.
Yeah, it is.
And it just reinforces the feeling that something is being hidden.
Totally.
That we're not getting the story.
Yeah.
It's enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about these historical events.
I know, right?
It's a lot to process.
It is.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to stop for part 2 of this deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure your mind is racing with all these new pieces of the puzzle.
It is. It definitely is.
Take a break, grab a snack.
Okay.
And we'll come back for the final part of our journey into the world of conspiracy theories.
Sounds good. I'm ready for more.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're back.
We've been on quite a journey.
We have.
Through some of history's most controversial events.
Yeah.
Uncovering conflicting accounts, suppressed information, and unanswered questions that really make you think twice about the official narrative.
It's like we've been peeling back layers of an onion, and with each layer, the story gets more and more complex.
That's a good analogy.
Thanks.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive into conspiracy theories,
Okay.
let's try to pull together some of the key insights that we've uncovered from these articles.
All right. Sounds good.
We started with the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
What stood out to you from that part of our discussion?
The lack of mainstream media coverage of the Lloyd Jowers trial was truly baffling.
Yeah.
You have a confessed killer,
Right.
corroborating witnesses, and a jury verdict.
And yet
it was almost completely ignored
Right.
by major news outlets and even the Justice Department.
It's crazy.
It raises the question of whether there was a deliberate effort to suppress this alternative explanation for King's assassination.
It really does.
Yeah.
Then we moved on to the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
And it seems like every detail we explored just led to more questions.
It did.
The Moorman photograph,
Mm-hmm.
the hashtag 5man,
Right.
the conflicting accounts of the throat wound,
Yeah.
the magic bullet theory,
Uh-huh.
Governor Connolly's reactions to the Zapruder film.
Right.
It's also incredibly complex and contradictory.
And let's not forget the FBI report that directly contradicted the single bullet theory.
Right.
Stating that the bullet found on the stretcher didn't actually exit Kennedy's body.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It makes you wonder how the Warren Commission could have reached their conclusions with such seemingly crucial evidence contradicting their findings.
That's a huge mystery.
It is.
Then we shifted gears to Pearl Harbor.
It's an event that most people think of as a clear-cut surprise attack.
Right, a day that will live in infamy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even that narrative is challenged by the research of Robert Stinnett,
Right.
who argues that the U.S. had broken Japanese codes and might have even had some foreknowledge of the attack.
His research along with the evidence of those missing RDF reports, certainly suggests that the U.S. government might have known more than they initially admitted.
For sure.
It makes you rethink the events leading up to Pearl Harbor and question the motivations behind U.S. actions.
It seems like every event we've discussed is riddled with unanswered questions and conflicting accounts.
Yeah, it does.
It's enough to make anyone question the official narrative.
It's important to remember that history is not always a straightforward account of what happened.
Right.
It's often a product of interpretation, perspective, and, yes, even manipulation.
So where does this leave us?
Yeah, good question.
What are we supposed to believe when even historical events seem so shrouded in mystery? I think the key takeaway here is the importance of critical thinking.
Absolutely.
We can't just blindly accept what we're told.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to events that have shaped our world.
Right.
We need to be willing to question, to seek evidence from multiple sources, and to form our own conclusions based on the available information.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
It is.
It's about empowering you, the listener, to think critically and engage with history in a more informed and nuanced way.
Exactly.
So the next time you encounter a historical event that raises questions in your mind, don't be afraid to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Seek out different perspectives. Consider alternative explanations.
Right.
And don't be satisfied with easy answers.
I like that.
We might never have all the answers.
Yeah, that's true.
But the pursuit of truth is a journey worth taking.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Remember, keep questioning. Yes, keep exploring. And keep diving deep.
Please dive deep.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Back for more.
We've been on quite a journey.
It's been quite a ride.
Through some of history's most controversial events, uncovering those conflicting accounts.
Yeah, so many.
Suppressed information and those unanswered questions.
It makes you wonder.
It really does make you wonder about whether the official narrative is the whole story.
Right, like what are they hiding?
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive into conspiracy theories, let's try to pull together some of the key insights that we've uncovered from these articles.
Sounds good.
We started with the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, a heavy one.
What stood out to you most from that part of our discussion?
You know, for me, it was the lack of mainstream media coverage of the Lloyd Jowers trial.
Right.
Like, how could they just ignore that?
It's baffling.
It is. You have a confessed killer, corroborating witnesses, and a jury verdict, and yet. It's like it never even happened.
It's like they just swept it under the rug.
Exactly.
It raises the question.
It does.
Of whether there was a deliberate effort to suppress this alternative explanation for King's assassination.
It makes you think.
It really does.
Yeah.
Then we moved on to the JFK assassination.
Oh, yeah. So many twists and turns with that one.
And it seemed like every detail we explored just led to more questions.
Oh, for sure.
The Moore-Man photograph.
Right.
The hashtag 5man.
On the grassy knoll.
The conflicting accounts of the throat wound.
That was a weird one.
The magic bullet theory.
Right. How does a bullet do that?
I know.
It's like it has a mind of its own.
Governor Connolly's reactions in the Zapruder film.
It's all just so much.
I know. It's incredibly complex.
It is.
And contradictory.
Yeah. And don't even get me started on that FBI report.
The one that contradicted the single bullet theory.
Yeah, that one stating that the bullet found on the stretcher didn't even exit Kennedy's body.
I know, it's wild.
It's like, come on, people, what are we doing here?
It's like they weren't even trying to be consistent.
Right.
It makes you wonder how the Warren Commission could have reached their conclusions.
It's baffling.
With such seemingly crucial evidence contradicting their findings.
It really is.
Then we shifted gears to Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
An event that most people think of as a clear-cut surprise attack.
Right.
But even that narrative, it's challenged by the research of Robert Stinnett.
Yeah, 16 years of research, that's dedication.
It is.
He dug deep.
He really did, and his findings are pretty shocking.
To say the least, the U.S. breaking Japanese codes, possibly having some foreknowledge of the attack.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. It really makes you question the motives and the actions of those in power.
For sure.
And that lack of transparency.
It seems like every event we've discussed is just riddled with these unanswered questions and conflicting accounts.
It's like a maze with no exit.
It's enough to make anyone question the official narrative.
It really is. It makes you wonder, what is history? What can we actually believe?
Right. It's like, what is real?
And I think that's the most important takeaway from all of this.
Okay. What's
the importance of critical thinking.
Couldn't agree more.
We can't just blindly accept what we're told, especially when it comes to events that have shaped our world.
Absolutely.
We need to be willing to question, to seek evidence from multiple sources, and to form our own conclusions.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
It is. It's about empowering you, the listener, to engage with history.
To be an active participant.
Exactly.
Not just a passive recipient of information.
So the next time you encounter a historical event that raises questions in your mind, don't just brush those questions aside.
No.
Dig deeper.
Explore those different perspectives.
Exactly.
Consider alternative explanations.
And don't be satisfied with easy answers.
Sometimes the truth is more complex than we'd like to believe.
It usually is.
But it's always worth seeking.
Always.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into conspiracy theories.
Wow, what a journey.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Remember, keep questioning, keep exploring.
Keep those minds sharp.
And keep diving deep.
See you next time.